bring to you Dr. Mary Willock, and she's an experienced teacher, in fact recently retired, and still very busy, has a ministry going and all that. Welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
What was it that just influenced you to be a teacher? And how many years did you teach?
I taught 32 years in the elementary and middle school. And what influenced me, when I was about 10 years old, I went to a teacher's retreat, and my aunt was a teacher, and so she invited the family. This was in Missouri. And I had such a great time at the retreat, I knew I wanted to be a teacher.
Probably nothing similar.
I don't think so, but of course I always enjoyed playing school and all that kind of thing as I was growing up. But I just always knew I wanted to be a teacher from that time on.
In 30 years, what was a really noticeable change in the children?
Well, the behavior and the parents' support.
It's all kind of gone down.
Yes, yes. When I started teaching in a ghetto school, and we saw a lot of the behaviors there. And as what I noticed is that in the average schools now, that the behaviors are very challenging to deal with, and we try to use a lot of strategies to help our students, but in a lot of cases we're not allowed to use the consequences that would normally follow, because just
they're
like,
afraid of lawsuits.
Well, it's just like you were talking about being happy, is that we want to keep everybody happy, and it just doesn't work, because school can be wonderful and enjoyable, and we expect it to be that every day, but learning is hard work. We're about the business of learning, and we want to make sure that our children are learning to face challenges and working to their highest potential.
Yeah, there's so much you have to be aware of. You can't offend anybody. And I've noticed schools that let things just slide by because they're afraid of a lawsuit. And I'd like to say there's a lot of Christian law, legal firms that will help in these things, but it seems to me like the culture is just going down the tubes, and perhaps someone like yourself would notice it more than anybody else, because you deal with it on a daily basis.
Well, I've noticed it, but I've really tried to, through the years, maintain Christian standards in my classroom, even though I taught in the public schools. And I tried to work with my parents and to encourage their support, and there were challenges along the way, but through all this, then I've learned a lot about dealing with parents and teaching them and working with them to help their children. Matter of fact, I teach when I go into churches, and I teach on a Sunday service, or I teach at a retreat or a seminar, then I try to provide them real practical strategies that will help them, that I know by experience. We hear a lot about parenting from so many sources, and some of them are very strange. You say, well, what are they doing talking about parenting? However, it's time we hear from some of the teachers, and some people think that teachers are the enemy, but we are not. And matter of fact, there are so many Christian teachers in the public school.
Yes.
You would be amazed. And so I just really always encourage people to pray for their teachers, and because they do need that support.
I've mentioned it on the program so many times that the Christian teachers in our public schools, and some of them in very difficult neighborhoods, they're not all the same. I consider them missionaries.
Absolutely.
As much as if they were going to a foreign country.
I do believe that, yes.
As you watch this kind of breakdown, was it then harder to get results as far as their grades? I read a big article this last week, about a parent coming in threatening a teacher because he gave the kid the grade he earned. And, they want, maybe this is high school level and all, but the teacher felt even unsafe. So my question is, maybe more into the middle school or the higher primary grades, were you giving as many A's as this whole cultural phenomenon started to break down?
Well, I we always give what the students earn.
Yeah.
And
do you find them earning less?
well, a lot
at the
of
top
times,
grades?
a lot of times that they don't want to do the homework anymore because they have so many activities at home, and they the parents are not as supportive as they could be. So many times the grades are not quite as high as you would expect. A lot of times we have a child that's bright, but who's been allowed to play video games and be involved in sports. And I really encourage students to be involved in sports. And some video games are okay, but not too much of that. But we just have to be very careful that that our children are right on task, because this is the time of their lives when they are learning, preparing for life. Just like Sunday school and church prepares us for our lives, we work together with pastors and parents and the other teachers and the students, that we prepare them for life so that they'll have the skills they will need in order to get and hold jobs.
Yeah, I have a son-in-law who's a teacher, and he has mentioned the difficulty in getting a parent to a teacher-parent meeting. They just don't show up. And yet, these are two major factors in the child's life. The parents and the teacher, they ought to really be on the same page.
Oh, absolutely. It's true that a lot of times they don't show up because they get busy, they forget, they don't consider it a priority. But then again, I have many students whose parents would show up. And you know what question they always ask? My very best students, the parents would want to know, what else can I do to help my child do better? They didn't come in complaining. They wanted to know how they could help their child excel even more, and how encouraging that is.
Made you feel good.
Oh, it always does, and that does happen. We have many supportive parents. I would say one of the things that's so important is that we have to be careful as parents how we talk about our teachers at home, because if we speak in negative ways about the teachers, then the children actually, in some cases, public school is considered a terrible place to be, and it's not necessarily that. And so we want to be careful, because it turns children off to learning, and that's a serious problem. It's kind of like talking about the pastor in front of the children.
Yeah, I would say never have roast pastor for Sunday meal.
Absolutely. And if we want our children to want to go to church, then we must be speaking positively about the pastor, the Sunday school teachers, the church experience, God, and matter of fact, talking about God at home, so that our children don't just think that God is part of Sunday, but He is part of our everyday lives. Yes.
If you just tuned in, I'm talking to Dr. Mary Willock, and she just recently retired for more than 30 years teaching school. I want to put her website up because you can probably already tell she's a very good communicator, and she will come to your church or your ladies group and talk about these issues, and about about positive parenting as well. So please take note of that. And also, you're in a singing group or something, right?
Absolutely. I have a quartet, and sometimes they come and share according to what the church would like for us to do. But we've been together 20 years, and we are all public school teachers, or have been public school teachers until they retired.
Now, you also speak on victory over depression.
Yes, I do.
That's one of the things you address. Have you experienced that, or why do you talk on that subject?
Because it's such a serious problem in our nation, and I have experienced depression, so I speak from experience. However, when I seek the Lord for a topic, when the Lord lays something on my heart, and I just lay it before Him and I say, God, what do you want me to tell your people? I really do. And the revelations that come are amazing to me. Many times I'm in tears because I know these are the answers, not the worldly psychology answers that so many people want to give us, but the Bible-based answers that our people need to hear. And recently I spoke on that on a GLOW session. And what I was told by a doctor's wife that was there, she says, I have never heard a more comprehensive teaching on overcoming depression in all my life. And so
what's the key to it?
The key to it, there are so many factors to it, and I reveal things practical things that people can do to make a difference, and they will see change. And also I teach on enabling, which is another area that's so serious in our nation today, that our children, we have the children that are being enabled to avoid responsibility and not become caring people. And so we want our children to grow up to be caring, responsible adults. And if we're not careful, the way we try to keep our children happy all the time, and it's just not reality. So I teach on enabling, and also about the children that return home as adults, and the enabling that's going on there, and the results of that.
There's a lot of that now, but I understand there's a lot of it that is economic problems. A lot of adult children have returned home.
Absolutely.
But there should really be a whole different order than when they were in middle school, as far as responsibility and...
Well, responsibility, and they may not have money right now, but they have ability to help out in the house. They have ability to do chores and things around the house and still be looking for that job so that they can return to work.
Yeah, I see a shift going on, and boy, I see a lot of negatives about it, because these young people, first place, they ought to be very diligent about what they major in. I always told my daughter, she's a professional harpist, but I was saying, you better learn to type, you know. So when you come out of college with some real weird degree that you can't plug in anywhere, and coupled with $100,000 of student loans, it's gotten crazy. So maybe there will come some common sense to the whole college experience, because it's not for everybody. We still need mechanics, and we need chefs, and we need all kinds of people. So I just sense with this economic thing we're going through that people might be looking at that differently.
I believe they will, but we've got to be very careful as parents that we don't enable them to become couch potatoes and to live lifestyles at home that they don't approve of, that are not godly lifestyles. And so you've got a lot of factors there also that parents need to, some of them just need permission to charge their children rent, all right? They need for somebody to say it's okay, that because people don't have their whole salaries to spend on whatever they want to spend them on. And to
my daughter paid.
Yes, that's excellent, because that's part of responsibility. I have some strategies that they can apply. But you're talking about getting the skills that will help them. My daughter went to college and was a history major, and at first she said she would like to teach, and then later on she got through early. So I said, well, you have another year of scholarship. Why don't you get a business major? A minor, excuse me. And so she did get that business minor. And with that, she went on to get her MBA. She works for Wycliffe USA in Orlando, Bible translators. Right. And she's vice president now in charge of HR. And so because she's developed those skills. Oh, yes.
That was so wise. If young people could just look and stop and think about being an American, you can be anything you want. And you consider everything and you take it to the Lord. I just wonder of all the opportunities that have just gone by and you never have them again.
That's true.
Yeah.
So while they're young and they're in school and learning to develop different skills.
That's where a parent needs to probe it, right?
Absolutely.
To notice, open up subjects, talk about it.
Yes, that's so important.
Turn off the TV.
Turn off the TV, yes.
And, you know, really find out what's in that child. So, this lady, you can already tell, has really a wealth of information to talk about that in these church groups and so forth, that you could go in and deal with the parenting and looking at it, you know, through the eyes of a teacher. But also these other subjects that God's called you to do.
Absolutely. And when I teach on Bible-based parenting, then when the grandparents are there, it is wonderful, because we have so many grandparents that have responsibility in raising their children. And you know what? Sometimes their children turned out all right, but sometimes they didn't turn out all right. And we can't afford to make those mistakes again,
twice.
not in another generation.
Yeah.
We must be rescuing our children and making sure that they are growing up to love and serve God with their whole hearts.
And you are the expert to get that across. I hope you'll take good advantage, and that she's got so much information to impart to you. We are out of time, but please hang around. I got a couple things to say before we have to say goodbye.
Arthelene would like you to keep the following information handy.